Mr. Alok Kumar, who's the president and CEO of NEC in India, is a prominent voice in the business world. And today we are on a show Plan B, which is looking at the budget that came. So this is budget with BW. Mr. Alok Kumar, first of all, your initial reactions to the budget.
I think it was a tough job for the finance minister to balance what was expected and what was a necessity. All in all, I won't say it's full points, but it is something that is a remarkable balance to what needed to be done for the economy. Good, an aggressive and bold move in the infrastructure and in the connected city vision. But I think more could have been done on the IT sector, on the telecom sector, and in this job and demand creation side.
Okay, Alok, let me ask you again. A lot of people said, "Oh, the stock market went up. Why did it go up?" So clearly, there was apprehension that the taxes may go up. There may be a inheritance tax, maybe property tax will go up. So those new taxes didn't come. That was one, reason when it went up. The budget was solid in the way it was presented. I thought it was a very balanced budget. It was back to basics, getting everything right. And you have to look at it in the context of what the Prime Minister said. He said that, during the corona, we've done mini budgets, we've done interventions, we've given away a lot. So you have to look at the budget in that context. So you talked about that in IT, in telecom, you would have expected more. What were your expectations that were not met?
I wouldn't put it as it was my expectation and it was not met. I think, India is at a time where India has proven to the world what the infrastructure and IT spending can unlock for not just India, but for the global world. I mean, 2 decades of history on the IT sector, how it's supporting digitalization and globalization of some of the most advanced economies. When it comes down to that power, that harnessing that power of the talent that resides in India, I think more could have been done in trying to attract investment in the IT sector, making sure that more R&D is done out of India for global purposes, and also providing incentives for international operators to actually come in and provide product and solutions for really complex challenge that our Indian landscape provides. So I think it is from that context that I said that COVID-19 has given us a great backdrop and landscape to accelerate some of the roadblocks that used to exist before. And now people have opened their mind. I think with more investment, particularly focused around the digitalization agenda, could have helped more. However, saying that, some of the work that is being unlocked and envisioned through the infrastructure investments around transportation, around connected city, around rail, aviation, shipping, roadways, etc. I do think that there is still going to be a contagion benefit for the IT sector to digitalize some of the investments that is coming through the government on those sectors. So I'm conscious that I don't see this budget purely as there is nothing earmarked for the IT sector, so nothing will come to IT sector. I think a lot will come, but more could have been done in trying to boost R&D and harnessing the talent of Indian IT sector.
Thank you so much, Alok. Now, again, infrastructure is a sector you said it got the fillip. Now, NEC is a large technology giant. Clearly, NEC has manufacturing facilities across the world, right? Do you see that with the kind of Atmanirbhar push, with the kind of Make in India push, with the PLI for manufacturing, and the overall context of the budget, do we ever see NIC bring its manufacturing to India in a big way?
So we have got about close to 6,000 people over here. We've got one of the 7 R&D centers actually work out of India in Bangalore. We are already investing in many areas of telecom. For example, we've got a 5G center of excellence that we've just launched in Chennai. Similarly, we are looking at a center of excellence that in the submarine sector, that will be a global center of excellence that we are contemplating putting out of in India. So we are part services and part manufacturing. So the service side, we have already made some move to bring in the investment and India becoming the hub. On the manufacturing side, we will do everything that is required and necessary. Also, remember that it is the decision for foreign companies, for multinational companies to come to India to harness the manufacturing potential is not going to be driven purely by the smoothness of land acquisition or PLI. We also have to be mindful that India is pregnant with an enormous opportunity of local demand. That is something that we should never underestimate. And I think the larger reason to drive manufacturing decisions locally in India will be driven out of the potential that India offers. And I think it's very much a part of our plan. When, how, and at what size is something that we are contemplating.
Okay, Mr. Kumar, now let me ask. If you look at it, it's a social impact budget. The last budgets of the Modi government, the last 6 budgets, have been a social impact budget. And yesterday, one of my panelists on my show said it is heal the society budget. So if you had to coin a term to call this budget, what would you say? For example, today, Hindustan Times carried a beautiful, budget test positive for hope. And it is a beautiful headline. And sometimes, headlines say a lot and they're in sync with what the real story is. And in this case, it was. But what would be your headline if you had to write a headline?
I would give a little bit of a local spin to it, and I would call this budget is clearly Badhe Chalo. Pandemic or no pandemic, the government and the leadership of the government has to have a resolve to try and continue to be on the path, on the focused path of uplift the general living condition of the citizens. And I think in that regard, the government has done a very balanced, very well balanced act in trying to make sure that the money goes in the right infrastructure sector, which is going to create the foundation for future consumptions and demand. Yes, a little bit more could have been done on immediate tactical job creation and demand generation, but that I think would eventually flow through with all the money that is being allocated across other sectors. So I'm of the view that this budget has brought the focus back to what were the fundamentals that needs to be fixed in the economy. So I would call it Badhe Chalo, because irrespective of whatever distraction comes, pandemic or no pandemic, the government has gotten the focus of the investment back on track to where it needs to be.
And clearly the finance minister seemed very confident, very calm, very composed. And, she could see the runway in the way that, if we did all this and calibrated it well and executed it well, we would have, one of the questions, where will the government get the money? Clearly the, LIC's disinvestment alone, coupled with other disinvestment in 2 PSU banks, in Air India, and so on and so forth, will net the government enough money to be able to carry out its vision. So clearly the finance minister was very confident, seemed very calm, composed. There was absolute clarity. And that's why you've seen that in spite of there being no personal finance except for, citizen above 75, exempting them to file the income tax returns, takes away the cost of, filing it, also the kind of efforts senior citizens have to make. Apart from that, there was an expectation that, there's been an expectation for many years that the personal income tax will go up. Clearly that didn't go away. But by and large, people were happy. And again, those who understand business economics and they understand public policy, budgets are about intent, they're about direction. Of course, they're a statement of, the accounts of the government and where it will put money. The government showcased intent of putting more money in healthcare, putting more money in infrastructure, which you talked about. But tell us, in terms of the holisticness of the budget, what is the comment you have to make? Because if you look at, whether it comes to education, setting up a university, in a area that has been traditionally neglected and has not been on our radar, so to say, right from there to be able to look at the solar energy sector, look at textiles as a sector, which is a huge, from a manufacturing standpoint, India was always good in that. And, it is also almost 8% of the GDP. The textile sector itself is also a huge employer. So from a holisticness of the budget, what is the comment you have, Mr. Alok Kumar?
I think Anurag, you will never have a perfect budget in a place in an economy like India. It's a ambitious economy filled with youngsters who are very ambitious about about their life, and you will never have an economy where we have sufficient funds to always meet every mouth and every demand. So there will always be a little bit of a gap between the expectation and the necessity. I would say that clearly the big money, the big buck is being invested in places that is going to, once those big behemoths, whether it's real estate, whether it's transportation, whether it is connected city, whether it's aviation, once these big behemoths, healthcare, begin to move, I think it will have a contagion impact in terms of job creation, in terms of ancillary industries getting supported. The government clearly had to make some choice. If you and I were in that space, I don't know what other choices we would have made. Maybe 15-20% choices could have been different. And if you had parked a lot of money for, let's say, education, somebody would have said, hey, what are you doing for healthcare? So I think it cuts both ways. I think the important thing to know is that we don't lose focus that this money that is being spent is going in fundamental foundation of the country. As long as that is being met, I think we would be good, and I think this budget really does that. As far as textile is concerned, the finance minister did talk about 7 mega textile parks that will be launched in the next 3 years. So some fillip and some focus is coming back onto the textile sector, and it goes back to the Atmanirbhar Bharat mission that the government has. So I think it's all in the right direction. It's not perfect, but I think it's more than meets the eye, given the complexity challenges that the government faces today.
Okay. Also, the government has outlined 50,000 crore for R&D.
Yeah.
Now, from a country that wants to make, technology its strong point, to build product companies, so on and so forth, that clearly augurs well. If we have to build the companies of future, the technologies of future, if we have to be Atmanirbhar in a true sense, then clearly we have to be focused in R&D. How do you see this move?
I think it's a brilliant move. That was one of personal expectation that I had. I had sent a couple of days back to another media house that we need to do more around R&D. And I, being in the center of gravity on the IT sector, I can tell you that India has some of the best talent, in the IT sector in the world. And having the R&D infrastructure, we have been for long been the backyard of a lot of offshoring work. We need to now upskill ourselves from not just doing 24/7 so-called call center work, to more producing product and solutions. We already are doing it, but in very challenging circumstances and environment. But if we get the right R&D boost in the telecom sector, we are getting a lot of R&D boost, for example, in manufacturing sector. But if we do get that, I think our talent will be able to get the right space in the global, in information technology space that they have been shaping for decades now. But I think more can be done. The so-called made in India brand around the product and solutions can get a fillip from the R&D investment. So I welcome that, and I hope that we'll get more of it in the future.
Alok, I can't let you go. We spoke about 4.5 months back. You were on my daily show, and I asked you about where is business for NEC and the sector you are in. And you said it has started to come back, and it was, you could see the green shoots. But today, when we talk in first week of February, with the growth we've seen in November, December, Jan, where are we with the business environment? When do you see the business coming back in full bloom? Give a sense of what's happening in the economy.
I think it's already happening, Anurag. I think we are very encouraged by the momentum that we are seeing in the last 2 to 3 months. Clearly the government's intention, and not just central government, but even state government's intention to invest and spend is the right move. And we are clearly seeing that happening. There is more tenders coming out, more RFPs coming out, and we are very bullish about how the government, both at the central and at the state level, remain focused on digitalizing the citizen services, the safer city, the transportation, logistics, infrastructure piece of it. So we are seeing good momentum. Now that the country has opened up, a lot of the challenges we were facing in fulfilling commitments at the project sites, in being able to do physically go and do the work is out of the way. So for example, in our logistics sector, during the lockdown, we were working at a 20% manpower capacity. Today, we are working at 100%. So it is back to normal, and I think those things are the right harbinger of. So I'm very positive that next year is going to be a strong, solid momentum for us. We need to stay positive. It has been a difficult year for all of us. We need to come out of this extremely positive and extremely upbeat, because this is our time. Really, honestly, this is our time. There is no other country in the planet that can boast for the demand capacity that India can boast for. And I think we need to collectively, as a society, be able to be there at the right place at the right time to harness that opportunity.
Absolutely. My last question before I let you go: if I know for some companies the financial year is April, but if you look at broadly the next 12 to 15 months, if you had to make one or two predictions in terms of what you see as mega trends, which may have started manifesting themselves in very small ways, what would those be? You clearly have talked about the economy is growing. The next year should be a strong comeback that you already articulated. Beyond that, give us one or two trends which will become mega trends as the time passes.
I think people will some of the biggest megatrend I would see is that the so-called mix of work from home and go back to work is here to stay. And what does that mix have? What kind of a domino impact does that mix have on the economy, on the civil transportation, on the restaurant demand, on the movie theater demand, on the retail services? I think it's going to be something that we need to watch out for. Clearly, I think the home delivery, be it of goods and merchandise or of food, will continue to stay. I think the holidaying will change the way it is consumed, the way it was originally consumed. And at the back of all of this, touchless digitalization is definitely here to stay. We are working on a few projects ourselves that we would be very happy to reveal to you in a few bits, but we've talked about it before, which is, for example, we are working on a touchless and paperless, check-in and walk through at airports. We have progressed that from lockdown to now, and during the lockdown, we have actually been able to create the proof of concept that your face is your boarding pass. You don't have to even go into a check-in counter and say that you are traveling to Mumbai, for example. The moment you walk into the gate of the airport, we will be able to recognize that Mr. Anurag is actually booked for a flight from Delhi to Mumbai, and on your device you will get directions of which boarding gate to go to. So we are working on stuff that is going to revolutionize, and the fundamental assumption behind all of this is that at NEC, we are trying to improve the productivity of our citizens. How do we make that extra minute? How do we give that extra minute back to the citizens so they are able to better utilize that where it matters most?
Thank you so much, Mr. Alok Kumar, for talking to us. You see a bright future for your company and for the sector that you're in, and the industry and the country. And on that, I don't think there can be any disagreement. I think I said this before, that India's recovery would be faster than anyone expects, because the fundamentals are there. And again, the GST collection bears that out. Look at the January number, look at the December number, look at the November number. So clearly it's not a aberration, it is the norm, right? And coupled with the government's very balanced and back to basics budget, I think it augurs well. Clearly the devil is in details, one. Second, it's all about execution. We are sure that the government will be able to execute it well. And once the execution happens, I think the benefits, and when I talk of execution, I talk of spending on infrastructure. That is the biggest, because that will have a trickle-down impact. It will create jobs. Jobs will create demand. Because the biggest question that everyone asks is, has the budget changed the sentiment, and will the budget end up creating demand? So that's the kind of the real question to ask on a budget day. Looks like the budget is in the right direction. Company leaders like you, who are part of India Inc. and Business World, have given it a big thumbs up. And I'm not talking of, I know on screen, culturally we like to be laudatory, but off the screen also, you and other leaders have been laudatory of the government's very balanced budget. And, the government has made sure that there is a certainty in the policy regime, because investors look for certainty in policy regime. So there is no tinkering around with well-established norms. So I think that also has helped in the way we as a country are perceived as an investment destination. And clearly everyone, only in the personal finance sector, I would say there were a little more expectations, but maybe the next budget.
Yeah.
So thank you, Mr. Alok Kumar. We look forward to having another conversation with you soon enough. And we look forward to those announcements from NEC India soon.
Thank you, Anurag. Always a pleasure to talk to you, and thank you for having me over on the show.
Pleasure, all the best.
Thank
God
you.
bless you. Take care.